Explain why 2n plus 1 is an odd number. Well, 2n is even, and we haven't. How do we know that's an even number? Well, it's multiples of 2, and then adding 1 will make it odd. They're sort of guiding us here in this proof question. Essentially, you need to be aware that you can write any even number in the form 2n, where n's an integer, and an odd number in the form 2n plus 1. So proofs involving these typically mean you have to use those two. Prove that the difference between the squares of two consecutive odd numbers is a multiple of 8. Well, we've got 2n plus 1 is an odd number, and then you can just go for another one. But it has to be consecutive. So consecutive means something like 1 and 3 and 5. These are 3 and 5 are consecutive, 1 and 3 are consecutive. They have to be next to each other, but odd numbers that are next to each other, like the next odd number essentially. So if we've got 2n plus 1, well, we could do 2n minus 1, but then I'm introducing negatives. It probably makes sense to do the one afterwards, 2n plus 3. So there are different ways of doing this question, but I would suggest using your 2n plus 1 and then going for 1 after it. Prove that the difference, so the difference is when we subtract them, but we do the highest minus the lowest. So it's going to be 2n plus 3 squared, because it's the squares I'm interested in, and then I'm minusing 2n plus 1 squared. Okay, let's work this out. If you're on this last question, you can probably multiply brackets pretty quickly. So it's going to be 4n squared, but when I do 2n times 2n, when I do 2n times 3, I'm going to get 6n, but then I'm going to get two lots of that, so I'm going to get 12n, and then I'm going to get a plus 9. And then I'm going to minus 4n squared again by when I sort this one out, then I'm going to do 2n times 1, but double that, so I'm going to be adding 4n, and then I'm going to be adding 1. Okay, so really important to keep that bracket in there. Hopefully you have. Let's just show an extra step. 4n squared plus 12n plus 9 minus 4n squared minus 4n minus 1. These cancel out. I'm going to be left with 8n plus 8. You could say each term is divisible by 8, so we're all good. The best thing to do, however, is just to factorize out the 8. Okay, it does say prove, so which is a multiple of 8. It's good to write a little conclusion. Multiple of 8. You could say as required, or QED, quadrant demonstratum, or proof complete, but yeah, any of these things, just make sure that's there and you're being really clear with your answer.